you have ever been to Ebonyi State, you will know that people there love life. They love food, laughter, and stories. But in the small, peaceful town of Ezambo, there once lived a man so strange, so stingy, that even the mention of his name made people shake their heads and laugh. His name was Johnson, but nobody called him that anymore. Everyone called him Stingy Koko. And till this day, that name still echoes in the memories of old people who once knew him. Johnson was in his 70s, tall but slightly bent from age. His face was wrinkled, not because of hard work or suffering, but because of one simple reason. He frowned every time he saw people spending money. To him, money was sacred, money was life itself, and wasting it, even on himself, was a crime. Johnson inherited a lot of money from his late father, who was one of the first palm oil traders in the town. His father left him land, gold, and enough cash to live like a king till the end of his life. But Johnson was not interested in comfort or luxury. He lived in a small mud house at the edge of the village, the same house he was born in. His roof leaked when it rained, and his windows creaked whenever the wind blew. Yet he refused to repair anything. Why fix what is still standing, he would say, even when buckets of water were placed around the house during the rainy season to catch leaks. Johnson had only two shirts, both faded and patched in many places. He had also two trousers, one black and one brown, both worn out and mended so many times that the original clothes could no longer be seen. He had been wearing them for almost 8 years. Every time someone tried to convince him to buy new clothes, he would hiss and say, "Do I need the shirt to eat? Does the clothes give me money? As long as it still covers my body, it is fine." Johnson never married, not because women didn't like him. In his youth, he was quite handsome, but because he believed marriage was a financial trap, he never married. He used to tell people, "Why will I use my hard earned money to feed another person? Then tomorrow she will still come and say, I want new shoes, new wrapper, and food every day. For what? Love? Love doesn't fill the stomach." Oh. People laughed at him, but he didn't care. He said weddings were a waste of money too. Hall rent, clothes, music, decoration, nonsense. He believed any man who did a wedding was a fool, giving away his wealth to strangers who only came to eat and go. So Johnson remained single all his life. He didn't also trust banks, saying the government would tax him or steal his money. Johnson built a big wooden box in his room. That was where he kept all his money, neatly arranged in small bundles tied with rubber bands. He didn't even buy a proper padlock. He made one himself using iron scraps and wire. Each time he made small profits from the few palm kernels he sold or from rent, he would smile to himself, walk slowly to his room, open the box, and place the money gently inside. He never counted it in public. He never told anyone how much was in there. That box was his heart, his pride, and his only joy in life. Every morning, Johnston woke up before sunrise, took his bucket of cold water, and bathed outside, shivering but happy he didn't need to boil water with gas or firewood. He cooked only twice a week, and he cooked one thing: beans. He would soak the beans in water, add just salt, no oil, no pepper, nothing else. He would eat small portions and store the rest for the next day. Sometimes, when visitors came, he hid the pot under his bed, pretending he had nothing to offer. There was a time his neighbor, Mama Nkechi, saw him drying his used Lipton tea bags under the sun. She was shocked. She asked, "Papa Johnson, why are you drying those Lipton tea bags again?" He replied calmly, "Because there's still Lipton tea inside, my dear. You people waste too much. This one will still serve me for 1 week." Mama Nkechi laughed until tears came from her eyes. From that day, she started calling him Stingy Koko, meaning the king of stinginess, and the name spread like wildfire. Children sang about him when playing outside. They would chant, Stingy Koko, he will not dash you one kobo." Sometimes Johnson pretended not to hear, but deep inside, he liked the name. He was proud of being stingy. To him, it meant he was wise, a man who didn't waste money on useless things like parties or friends. One afternoon, his kind neighbor, Mr. Uche, visited him. Uche was a cheerful man in his 50s who always tried to see good in everyone. He came with a friendly smile and said, Papa Johnson, please don't be angry, oh, but I have been thinking, you are 70 something now, living alone, no wife, no children. It's not good. Let me even help you small. Take this 5,000 naira, use it and start plans for marriage. It's not too late. Johnson stared at him, his eyes wide. He didn't know whether to laugh or get angry. He looked at the money and asked, You want me to marry with this money, eh? So that I will start feeding another mouth? Or do you want to collect my inheritance too? Uche laughed, thinking it was a joke, but Johnson was dead serious. People don't know that women are expensive to maintain. The moment you marry one, your money begins to disappear. No, thank you. I am fine like this. Uche shook his head and said jokingly, Okay, oh, stingy Koko, one day when you die, your goats will eat your money. Johnson smiled proudly and replied, At least my goats deserve it more than the people who didn't work for it. The conversation spread through the town by evening. Everyone laughed about it. They said if stinginess was a sickness, Johnson's own has reached the final stage. But no one knew that something strange was about to happen, something that would change Johnson's life forever. If you live near Johnson, you would never forget him. He was that one neighbor that would argue with you over 1 naira. That one man that would stand by his gate watching people cook and still refuse to test it even when invited. He didn't visit people and he didn't like visitors either. Whenever someone knocked at his door, he would first peek through his window, hiss quietly, and whisper to himself, Another money beggar has come. Then he would shout through the window, Who is there? What do you want? If the person said they came to greet him, he would answer, I don't need greetings, so I am fine. Go home. That was how his life went, peaceful, lonely, and filled with counting his money. Johnson, however, didn't care. He said people only hated him because he was wise. He even said one day that when he died, he would bury his money with himself so no one would touch it. That was the kind of man he was, proud of his stinginess. But life has a way of changing people, even those who believe they can never change. One quiet morning, Johnson went to the roadside to buy beans, his favorite food. He had his usual shopping habit, walking from one trader to another, asking prices and arguing over small amounts. At one stall, a young woman was arranging her basket of gari. Her name was Amaka. She was in her late 20s, gentle, humble, and beautiful in a quiet way. Her clothes were clean but simple, and her voice was soft. Johnson pointed at her gari and asked, How much is this one? 300 naira, sir, Amaka replied politely. Johnson scoffed. 300 naira? For ordinary gari? Do you want to buy car with it? Amaka smiled shyly and said, Sorry, sir, oh, it's the price everyone sells. But if you don't have up to that, I can give you a smaller measure for 200. That small act caught Johnson's attention. Nobody had ever offered him a discount without argument. He stared at her for a while, then gave her the 200. When she handed him the small bag of gari, he noticed how respectful she was. She didn't roll her eyes, she didn't argue, she even thanked him. As he walked away, something strange happened. Johnson smiled. Yes, smiled, the same man who already laughed even at jokes. The next day, Johnson went back to the same market, pretending to need pepper. He didn't even need pepper to cook. Yes, he was that stingy, but he wanted to see Amaka again. When he saw her, she greeted him warmly. Good morning, sir. Johnson cleared his throat, pretending to be serious. "Mm, I just came to check if your gari is still cheap." Amaka laughed softly. It's still the same price, sir. That laughter did something to him. It made him feel lighter, younger, and somehow alive again. Day by day, he began to visit her stall, buying one small thing or the other. He was either buying a handful of crayfish, a small tomato, sometimes even nothing. He just wanted to talk to her. Amaka was kind but poor. She lived with her widowed mother and they struggled to feed daily. She had no luxury, no big dreams, just peace and survival. To Johnson, she was perfect. She didn't eat much, didn't wear flashy clothes, and didn't talk about money. One evening, he went home thinking deeply. He looked around his empty house, the patched roof, the broken chair, the big box of money in the corner, and for the first time, he felt lonely. He whispered to himself, Maybe I need someone. but she must not be like all these people who eat every day. And that was how the idea of marrying Amaka began to grow in his stingy old heart. A week later, he went to the market again and stood before her stall. Amaka greeted him cheerfully, but he looked nervous. Amaka, he said slowly, you are a good girl. You don't eat too much and you respect people. So I want you to come and be my wife. Amaka was shocked. She dropped the gari she was holding. Sir, you mean marriage? Yes, he replied proudly. Marriage, but don't think it will be a big one. I don't waste money on nonsense. Just you, me, and a few witnesses. We will not buy food for the whole village. Amaka laughed. She thought it was a joke, but Johnson's face was serious. She realized he meant it. She went home to tell her mother, who nearly fainted when she heard the name Johnson. Ah, Amaka, you mean Stingy Koko wants to marry you? The old woman cried. My daughter, that man will count your spoon before you eat. He will count every grain of rice, oh. But Amaka said softly, Mama, he may be stingy, but he is kind to me. Maybe he will change. Her mother shook her head, but she agreed to meet him. And so Johnson's marriage journey began, one that would teach him a lesson he will never forget. When the news spread that Stingy Koko, the man who said marriage was a waste of money, was finally planning to marry, the entire town of Example nearly went mad. Old women laughed until their sides hurt. Market men argued about whether it was true or not, and even children sang a new version of their song. Stingy Coco don't marry you, Stingy Coco don't marry you. No one believed it at first, and some said it was a lie. Others said maybe he was under a spell. But when people saw Johnson visiting Amaka's family's compound, wearing his brown trousers and one of his two old shirts, they knew it was true. The stingiest man alive had finally decided to settle down. Johnson went to see Amaka's mother officially. He carried a small bag of rice, not the full bag, just half, and a small bottle of palm wine. When he entered the compound, Amaka's mother and uncles welcomed him politely, though they exchanged knowing glances behind his back. Amaka's uncle, a tall man named Uncle Kechku, whispered to another, this is the man that doesn't dash even one kobo. The other replied quietly, let's teach him a lesson. They all sat down in the sitting room. Johnson cleared his throat and spoke with pride. Good afternoon, my in-laws to be. I came to see you because I want to marry your daughter, Amaka. She is humble, she doesn't eat too much, and she doesn't disturb people. She will make a good wife. Amaka's family thanked him, but before they could continue, Johnson added quickly, please, I don't want all those expensive ceremonies, so let's do something small and simple. Everyone looked at him and smiled quietly. They already knew what to do. After the visit, Amaka's family met that night to prepare his marriage list, and oh, they prepared it very well. They decided if this man loved money too much, they would help him to spend it, at least once in his life. The next day, when Justin returned to collect the list, Uncle Kechku handed him a long sheet of paper. Johnson smiled as he opened it, but that smile vanished after the first few lines. The list said 100 tubers of yam, 100 crates of malt and 100 crates of beer, two fat goats, 50 bags of rice, one motorcycle for the mother-in-law, 10 million naira bride price, 200 wrappers, 20 box of clothes, and miscellaneous 500,000 naira. Johnson's eyes widened like he had seen a ghost. He dropped the paper on the ground and shouted, is this marriage or armed robbery? Uncle Kechiku smiled calmly. My son, it's our tradition. You can't marry an Eboyi woman without following custom. Johnson rubbed his bowed head in frustration. But your daughter is not the governor's child. Do you want to finish me? They all laughed, but Johnson was serious. He folded the list and stormed home angrily, talking to himself. Nonsense people. They want to eat my sweat. 100 crates of beer. Who will drink it? Angels? For the next 3 weeks, Johnson kept going back and forth to Amaka's house, arguing, complaining, and negotiating every single item. He begged them to remove the goods. They refused. He begged them to reduce the bride price. They said it was tradition. At one point, he even said, let's remove the food and just exchange prayers. Marriage is about love, not money. Amaka's uncle smiled and replied, yes, it's about love, but love needs food to stand strong. The whole family laughed, but Johnson wasn't laughing. He was sweating and shaking. Still, he didn't want to lose Amaka. She was the only one who made him smile in years. So, after many weeks of arguing and reducing small amounts here and there, he finally agreed. When he paid the bride price and completed the list, the whole town was shocked. Even the elders said, "So Stingy Koko can spend money." It was a miracle. The wedding day was fixed. Johnson wanted it small, very small, but Amaka's family said, "No, it must be done properly." They wanted to show the whole village that their daughter was getting married to a rich man, even though that man looked like a beggar. Johnson was not happy. He tried to control everything. He said, "No DJ, no expensive food, no new clothes." But the family ignored him. They said, "It's our daughter's day, not your money saving project." The hall was beautifully decorated. The caterers cooked plenty of rice, meat, and soup. Drinks filled the tables. The crowd was large. Villagers, friends, strangers, even people who just came to see if Johnson would truly appear. When he walked in wearing his same old brown trousers and a white shirt that has been ironed too long, people started whispering, "Na lie, see as him dress for wedding. This man no go change oh." I pity the wife. Johnson didn't care. He only cared about how much all this was costing. Every minute he kept calculating the money in his head. And with every laugh, every spoon of food someone ate, Johnson's anger began to rise. Everyone was smiling. Everyone except the groom himself. Johnson sat at the high table, frowning deeply. His face looked like thunder. While others danced and clapped, he sat counting imaginary numbers in his head, thinking of all the money he had already spent out of his box. He whispered under his breath, "Goat, 25,000. Rice, 45,000. Hall, 30,000. Decoration, 10,000. Ah, my chest." Amaka, his bride, noticed his mood and touched his hand gently. "Baby, please relax. Today is our wedding day. Smile small." He turned to her and said seriously, "Smile? When I can see my money turning into jollof rice? When people I don't know are drinking my mouth? My dear, this is not a day of smiling." Amaka sighed. She was used to him already, but she didn't know that the real drama was yet to begin. The caterers brought trays of steaming rice, fried plantain, chicken, meat, pounded yam, and soup. Drinks flowed freely: malt, soft drinks, palm wine, and even beer. People were happy, laughing, eating, and taking pictures. They said, "This wedding is fine oh, I never chop this kind rice before. Eh? Stingy Coco don't change oh, see food everywhere." But every sound of laughter, every click of a spoon was like a pain to Johnson's ears. He couldn't take it anymore. He stood up suddenly, his chair scratching loudly against the floor. Everyone turned to look at him. Johnson's eyes were wide with anger. He marched straight to the food table where the caterers were serving. Without saying a word, he picked up the biggest serving spoon and began to scoop rice into his own plate. Not just one plate, but several plates. People gasped. "Papa Johnson, what are you doing?" one of the women shouted. He replied sharply, "What does it look like I'm doing? I am eating my money." The hall went silent. Even the music stopped. The MC looked confused. Then, as if possessed by hunger, Johnson sat down near the food table and began to eat, fast and serious. He didn't care who was watching. He ate jollof rice, fried rice, beans, plantain, chicken, mixing everything together. His face was sweating, but he continued. Amaka covered her face with her hands. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. The guests sat frozen, holding their plates mid-air. Nobody dared to eat again. Even the caterers were standing helplessly, watching the groom finish almost everything they cooked. Every few minutes, Johnson would raise his head and shout, "Nobody should touch that meat. It's my money." He ate until he was full, very full, but still he didn't stop. He packed more rice into takeaway packs and said, "I paid for this food. It must not waste. I will eat it tomorrow and next tomorrow." The MC tried to restore order. "Sir, please, let's continue the program." Johnson waved him off with his spoon. "Leave me alone. Do you know how much I spent on this wedding? Let me recover my loss." The whole place burst into laughter. Some people started clapping, others began recording him with their phones. It was chaos, but also comedy. That day, Stingy Coco gave Ezambo the funniest wedding they have ever seen. By the time he finished, The tables were empty. He had eaten almost 90% of the food. The few that remained, he packed neatly into takeaway containers and arranged inside a big nylon bag. He wiped his mouth proudly, looked around the silent guests, and said, "Thank you for coming. Next time, eat before coming to my events." Then he carried a big bag of food and walked out with his new wife following behind quietly. People stood by the roadside laughing and pointing. Johnson walked ahead with pride. To him, he had done the right thing. He believed he had balanced the equation. Money spent, food recovered. But life had a surprise waiting for him at home. A surprise that would wipe that proud smile off his face forever. When they reached Johnson's compound, everything looked calm, too calm. The front door was slightly open. Amaka first noticed. "Baby, did you leave this door open?" He frowned. "Impossible. I locked it with my own hands." He pushed the door slowly and stepped inside. But what he saw made him freeze. The room was empty, completely empty. The chairs gone. Old television gone. Even his plastic buckets and stainless cups were gone. The small wooden box where he kept his money gone too. Amaka gasped and dropped the bag of food. "Jesus, we have been robbed." Johnson's mouth hung open. For a few seconds, he couldn't breathe. He ran to the corner where his precious wooden box used to sit and fell on his knees. "No, no, 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 no. My money, my life, my everything." He started shouting, throwing things around. "Who did this? Who entered my house? Who touched my money?" He opened every drawer, lifted the mattress, even looked under the bed. Nothing. Amaka stood by the door, tears in her eyes. "Baby, calm down. Maybe we can call the police." He turned to her angrily. "Police? Do you know how much that money was? You think police can bring it back? My life savings. I saved it all my life. All my life." Then he grabbed his head and screamed. He began to cry loudly. Not the small kind of crying. It was deep, painful cry that comes from a wounded heart. That kind that shakes the whole body. That night, Johnson didn't eat the food he brought home. He couldn't. He just sat on the bare floor staring at the empty room. Amaka tried to comfort him. She said, "Baby, I know it's painful, but maybe God took it so that you can learn to give and receive. Money is good, but love is better." Johnson didn't reply. Tears rolled down his face silently. For the first time in his life, he felt how empty wealth could be when it isn't shared. He realized that even though he was guarding every naira, life was passing him by. People avoided him. He had no true friend, no joy, only numbers and savings that could disappear in one day. The next morning, he went outside and sat quietly under the mango tree. Children passing by greeted him. "Good morning, Stingy Koko." But for once, he didn't get angry. He just smiled faintly. Amaka came out and sat beside him. He turned to her slowly and said, "Amaka, I have been a foolish man. I thought money was everything. But now I know a man can lose everything in one day and only love will remain to comfort him." She smiled gently. "It's never too late to change." He nodded. "I will change. I will start by giving this food to the poor children near the river bank." Amaka's eyes widened in surprise. "Really?" He stood up. "Yes, let them eat. Maybe the ones who stole from me needed it more than I did." That day, Johnson carried the bag of wedding food to the poor area by the river and shared it among hungry children. The children danced and sang. "Thank you, Papa Johnson." For the first time in his life, he smiled from his heart. He felt peace, a kind he had never felt before. From that day, he became a different man. He still loved to save, but now he also gave. He repaired the village borehole, helped widows, and even sponsored a few orphans in school. People stopped calling him Stingy Coco. They began calling him Giver Coco. And every time someone asked him why did he change, he would smile and say, "Because I lost everything to learn what truly matters." Sometimes life takes from us not to punish us, but to teach us what truly has value. When you when you hold too tightly to what you have, you may lose sight of the beauty of giving. And when you finally learn to give, you discover the joy that multiplies when money. You discover that joy multiplies faster than money could. If you know any stingy person in your life, send this video to the person, share it, and say, "Stop being stingy." Who knows, you might be saving someone from ending up like Johnson.